I was feeding the chickens when I saw the rental car coming up the mountain road. Wrong kind of vehicle for these parts. Too clean, too quiet. City car. The kind that brings trouble. 5 years I'd been living in this cabin. 5 years of peace earned through distance. The hens clucked soft around my boots, and the morning smelled like pine and wood smoke from the stove. My hands were steady on the feed bucket. The car stopped in my drive. She got out first. Diane. My ex-wife looked exactly the same and completely different. Same careful hair, same church outfit, but harder around the eyes. A man in a suit climbed out after her, carrying a briefcase like a weapon. They walked toward my porch like they owned it. "Hello, Frank," she said, sweet as poisoned honey. "We need to talk about what you owe us." The chickens scattered. Smart birds. The lawyer did most of the talking. Name was Stewart or Stewart. Didn't matter enough to remember. He had that city slick way of speaking, words arranged like traps. "Mr. Mercer, my client has been more than patient. 5 years of abandonment, 5 years of shouldering financial burdens alone." I stood on my porch, still holding the feed bucket. Diane arranged herself in one of my chairs without asking, crossing her legs like she was posing for a photograph. The smell of her perfume, too much, chemical flowers, cut through the clean mountain air. "The child support alone," the lawyer continued, pulling papers from his briefcase, "comes to $60,000. Then there's the marital assets you concealed when you fled." "The child isn't mine," I said. Kept my voice level. "She knows that." Diane's eyes flicked to me, then away. "You were his father for 23 years, Frank. You don't get to walk away from responsibility just because you had an affair?" The words came out flat. "Because you got pregnant with another man's baby?" The lawyer stepped between us, smooth as oil. "Mrs. Mercer filed a missing person report when you disappeared. The police have documentation of your mental state at the time, erratic behavior, possible suicidal ideation. Given those circumstances, her actions to protect family assets were entirely justified." That stopped me. "What actions?" "The house was quit-claimed solely to Mrs. Mercer. Your retirement account was liquidated for the family's immediate needs. All legally documented, all above board." The porch boards creaked under my boots. I'd built this porch myself. Every nail placed true. My fingers tightened on the bucket handle until the metal bit into my palm. "I never signed anything." The lawyer smiled, not friendly. "We have your signature on file, Mr. Mercer, notarized and recorded with the county. If you're suggesting forgery, that's a serious accusation. One that would require proof you don't have." Diane stood then, smoothing her skirt. She moved to the porch rail, looking out at my land like she was appraising it. "You've been hiding here," she said softly, "living like this while we struggled, while Sarah—" her voice caught, perfect timing, "while your daughter wondered why her father didn't love her enough to stay." The mention of Sarah hit different than the rest. My daughter. 28 now. I hadn't seen her since she was 23. Hadn't heard her voice except in memory. "How is she?" The question came out before I could stop it. Diane turned, and for just a second something sharp flashed in her eyes. Victory, maybe. "She's engaged, getting married in the fall. You won't be invited, of course. She doesn't want a father who abandoned her." The lawyer was watching me, reading my reaction. "We're prepared to settle this quietly, Mr. Mercer. $180,000. That covers child support, asset division, and emotional damages. You pay, we disappear from your life. You refuse." He shrugged. "We file in county court. It becomes public record. Everyone in this town will know exactly what kind of man you are." I looked at Diane, really looked at her, tried to see the woman I'd married 35 years ago, the one who'd laughed at my jokes, who'd fallen asleep on my shoulder during long drives. She was gone. Maybe she'd never existed the way I remembered. "I expect you should leave," I said. The lawyer snapped his briefcase shut. "You have 48 hours to respond. After that, we proceed with legal action." He handed me a business card I didn't take. It fluttered to the porch boards. Diane moved toward the steps, then paused, looked back at me with something almost like pity. Sarah said something last week, he said. At least I know what a real man looks like now, because Dad showed me what one doesn't. That's your legacy, Frank. That's what you left her with. They walked to the rental car. Gravel crunched under her heels. Wrong sound for this place. Too sharp, too entitled. The engine purred to life, and they drove away, dust trailing behind them like a stain on the air. I stood there long after they were gone. The feed bucket was still in my hand. The chickens had come back, circling my boots, waiting. From the neighboring property, I saw Ray Hutchins standing on his own porch. 71 years old, Vietnam vet, lived here longer than anyone. He'd been watching, didn't wave, didn't call out, just stood there, witness to whatever this was becoming. I scattered the rest of the feed. The chickens pecked and scratched, their world unchanged. Simple creatures, they gave eggs, I gave food, honest transaction. Inside the cabin, my pay-as-you-go phone was ringing. The phone was Mrs. Patterson from the general store. Her voice had that careful quality people use when they're delivering bad news they wish they didn't know. Frank, there was a woman in here this morning, city type, showed some folks official-looking papers, asked questions about you. Thought you should know people are talking. I thanked her and hung up. Through the window, I could see Ray still on his porch, coffee mug in hand. He raised it slightly. Invitation or acknowledgement, hard to say with Ray. The drive to the legal aid office took 3 hours. I went 3 towns over, to a place where nobody knew my face or my story. The office was cramped, fluorescent lights humming overhead like trapped insects. Stacks of manila folders covered every surface. This was where people came when they couldn't afford real lawyers. The woman behind the desk looked up, younger than I expected. Mid-30s maybe, dark hair pulled back, glasses that had slipped down her nose. Her nameplate said Meredith Chen. How can I help you? I sat in the plastic chair across from her. It creaked under my weight, same sound as 100 other desperate people who'd sat there before me. My ex-wife is suing me for $180,000, says I abandoned the family, says I owe child support for a kid that isn't mine. Meredith pulled a legal pad toward her, clicked her pen. Start from the beginning. So I did. The whole ugly truth laid out in that cramped office that smelled like old coffee and lemon cleaner, coming home early from the hardware store, the baby with another man's eyes, the paternity test, Diane's admission, her refusal to end it with him, my decision to leave. Did you keep the test results? Meredith asked. Any documentation of the affair? No. The word felt heavy. I wanted a clean break. Took my truck and my clothes, that's all. She tapped her pen against the pad, thinking. Montana's good for fraud cases if we can prove she forged documents or made false claims, but we need evidence. Do you have business records, bank statements from before you left? I had a business partner, Clayton Reeves. We sold hardware together in Nebraska. He bought me out when I left, gave me a fair price, enough to start over. If he kept the business records showing what the marital assets actually were, we might prove her claims are inflated or fraudulent. She leaned forward. That was 5 years ago, though. He might not have kept files that long. He might have. I tried to remember Clayton's cluttered office, his habit of never throwing anything away. Tax reasons. He always said you never know when you'll need old paperwork. Meredith wrote down Clayton's name. Call him, see what he has. Without documentation, this becomes he said, she said. And Mr. Mercer? She looked up, eyes honest. The fact that you left doesn't look good. Abandonment is abandonment in the eyes of the law, even if you had reasons. Walking to my truck, I felt the weight of it. The law didn't care about heartbreak, didn't care that staying meant dying slowly in a house full of lies. I'd chosen dignity over documentation, and now dignity might not be enough. My phone buzzed. Text from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Mercer, we can resolve this quietly or publicly. Your choice. Respond within 48 hours. Diane's lawyer, making sure I understood the stakes. I sat in the truck, engine off, staring at Clayton's number on my phone screen. We hadn't talked in 5 years. He'd asked once early on if I was okay. I'd said yes and stopped answering after that. Now I needed something from him. The call went through. 3 rings. Frank? Clayton's voice, surprised but not unfriendly. That really you? Yeah, it's me. I watched a young mother wrestle a toddler into the building across the parking lot. Normal people, normal problems. I need to ask you something. Anything. You know that. Did you keep the business records from when you bought me out? The partnership files, asset statements, all of it? Silence on the line. Then, yeah, yeah, I keep everything. Tax reasons, you know. What's going on? I told him. Kept it brief. Diane's lawsuit, the forged signatures she claimed were real, the money she said I owed. Jesus, Frank. His voice went heavy. I'll look tonight. Call you tomorrow. I appreciate it, Clayton. Frank. He hesitated. I'm glad you called. Been wondering about you. We hung up. I sat there in the parking lot, watching the fluorescent lights flicker in the legal aid office window. Meredith was already with another client, someone else's crisis filling the chair I'd just left. My phone buzzed again. Different number this time. The message was short. Mom showed me the court papers. You owe us $180,000. How could you hide money while we struggled? Sarah. My daughter thought I was a thief and a coward, and I had 48 hours to prove otherwise. Clayton called back the next evening. I was on the porch, watching the sun drop behind the mountains, coffee going cold in my hand. Ray's porch light was on across the way, steady presence, like always. I found the files, Clayton said. His voice sounded wrong, heavier than yesterday. Frank, it's worse than you think. My hand tightened on the phone. How much worse? She forged your signature. On the quit-claim deed to the house. I've got the original partnership dissolution papers here. Your signature looks nothing like what's on the county deed transfer. The coffee mug felt slick in my palm. What else? Your retirement account. She liquidated it 2 weeks after you left, transferred most of it to an account in Derek Hammond's name. He paused. That's the guy, right? The one she Yeah. Oh, that's him. There's more. Clayton's voice dropped. She filed a missing person report the day you left, claimed you were suicidal, said you'd been acting erratic, depressed, used it to get emergency access to your accounts. The mountain air felt thin. Suicidal. The cops interviewed me, Frank. Back then, I didn't know what she was doing. They asked if you'd seemed depressed, and I said, yeah. You seemed off after the baby came. I thought I was helping them find you. His breath came ragged over the line. I gave her the ammunition. I'm sorry. God, Frank, I'm so sorry. I watched the light fade from the valley. Diane hadn't just taken my money. She'd built a legal narrative that made me the villain, made her theft look like rescue. And Clayton, good-hearted Clayton, had confirmed her story without knowing. You didn't know, I said. I should have questioned it. But she was crying, and Sarah was so angry, and everyone just believed. He stopped. I'll testify. I'll tell them I was wrong, that I didn't know the whole story. I'll let you know. I hung up before he could apologize again. My phone sat heavy in my hand. Sarah's text from yesterday was still there, accusatory and cold. I typed a response. The money your mother says I hid, she stole. The signatures she has are forged. I can prove it. Deleted it. Typed again. I never abandoned you. Your mother lied about why I left. Deleted that too. Anything I said would sound defensive. Would sound like a deadbeat making excuses. Finally typed, I love you. I always have. Couldn't send it. She wouldn't believe it anyway. The next morning, Mrs. Patterson called again. Frank, that lawyer was back, held some kind of meeting at the town hall. Community consultation, he called it. Asked questions about your character, your finances. She hesitated. Some folks defended you. Others, well, you know how people are. I knew. People believed the best story, not the true one. That afternoon, Ray appeared at my door. Didn't knock, just stood there holding a folder until I opened up. What's this? Articles about fraud defense, Montana legal precedents. Printed them off at the library. He handed it over. Everything highlighted in yellow marker, notes in the margins in Ray's careful handwriting. Figured you could use some reading material. I stared at the folder. Ray, you didn't have to. Man doesn't live that quiet unless he's hiding from noise. He looked at me straight. I've been where you are. Different details, same weight. You holding up? Getting by. That's not what I asked. He shifted his weight, old military posture never quite leaving. You got people in your corner, Frank. Don't forget that. After he left, I sat with the folder. Ray had spent hours on this. Research, printing, organizing. For me? A neighbor he'd known 5 years, who'd never asked for help, who'd barely said more than good morning most days. Late that night, Clayton's email arrived. Scanned documents, dozens of them. I opened the first file and saw my signature on the partnership dissolution, my actual signature, the one I'd written. Opened the second file, the county deed transfer with a signature that looked like mine but wasn't. The K was wrong, the slant was off. Forged. Third file, Diane's police report. Frank has been acting erratic and depressed. I fear for his mental state. He may harm himself. Filed 2 hours after I'd driven away. Timestamp proved it. She'd planned this from the moment I left. Fourth file, bank records showing transfers. My retirement account. Emptied. Money flowing to Derek's account within days. I sat back, the blue light of the screen washing over me. Diane hadn't just betrayed me in our marriage. She'd constructed an entire legal fiction, a 5-year con, and I'd been running too hard to see it. My phone buzzed. Sarah again. Mom says you're harassing her with lawyers now. Why can't you just leave us alone? The evidence was on my screen. The truth was in these files. But my daughter was 3 states away, believing her mother's story, hating a father she'd been taught to hate. I looked at Ray's folder, at Clayton's files, at the lawyer's 48-hour deadline ticking down, ran or fight, same choice I'd faced 5 years ago. This time, I didn't reach for my truck keys. Meredith called the next morning. I was standing in the kitchen staring at coffee I'd forgotten to drink, watching it go cold. I reviewed everything Clayton sent, she said. The forgery's provable. Handwriting analysis will confirm it. The bank transfers, the timeline, it's all there. Frank, we have a case. Should have felt like victory. Felt like ashes. But, she continued, and I heard the weight in that word, her lawyer will argue your abandonment justified her actions, that she was a desperate woman protecting her family. They'll use the police report, your mental state, to paint her as the reasonable one. Even with proof she forged my signature? They'll say extreme circumstances called for extreme measures. And Frank, she paused, a judge might see it that way too. Husband disappears without explanation. Wife panics. Wife acts to secure assets for herself and her child. The forgery becomes understandable, sympathetic even. I set the coffee mug down. My hand was steadier than I felt. So even with the truth, I lose. Not necessarily, but it won't be clean. It'll be ugly and public and… She stopped. Your daughter, she'll have to know everything. The affair, the paternity, her mother's fraud, all of it. There it was, the real deadlock. Fight and destroy, Sarah's image of her mother. Let my daughter keep her illusions, keep her relationship with Diane intact, or pay Diane to go away and let Sarah keep believing I was the coward who ran. I need to think about it, I said. After we hung up, I pulled up Sarah's text again. Why can't you just leave us alone? Her words, her anger, all directed at me because that's what she'd been taught. I typed out a message. Your mother had an affair. The baby she was carrying wasn't mine. I have the paternity test. I have proof she forged documents and stole everything. I can show you. Deleted it. Read it back. Heard how it sounded. Desperate. Defensive. A man making excuses. Tried again. I left because staying meant living a lie. Your mother gave me no other choice. Deleted that too. Blame and justification. Not what a father should sound like. Finally typed, I'm sorry I wasn't there. I wish I could explain in a way that wouldn't hurt you more. Couldn't send it. She wouldn't want my apology. She wanted a father who'd stayed, and I couldn't give her that. My phone rang. Clayton. Frank, I need to tell you something. Diane's lawyer contacted me, said if I testify for you, they'll make it public that I helped you hide assets. It's bullshit, but his voice cracked. My business, Frank. I've got customers who've been with me 30 years. If word gets out that I helped someone defraud his family, don't testify, I said. I won't ask that of you. But the files, you've done enough. More than enough. I meant it. Clayton had his own life to protect, his own reputation. I wouldn't drag him down with me. I'm sorry, he said. I wish I could. I know. It's okay. After he hung up, the silence settled heavy. No witnesses. Documentation that might not matter. A daughter who hated me. A legal system that rewarded whoever filed first and cried loudest. I could pay Diane. 180,000 would take most of what I had, but I could start over. Again. And smaller. Maybe Wyoming or Idaho, somewhere even more remote than here. Sarah could keep her mother, keep her wedding plans, her clean narrative, her uncomplicated hate for the father who left. I'd be the villain in her story, but at least she'd have a story that made sense. The alternative was fighting, exposing Diane as an adulteress and a criminal, forcing Sarah to choose sides, to carry the weight of knowing her mother was both. What kind of father does that to his daughter? I found myself standing at the door, truck keys in my hand, engine running before I'd consciously decided. Foot on the brake, transmission in drive. Maps of Wyoming and Idaho already pulled up on my phone. I could be across the state line by midnight. Ray's old pickup pulled into my driveway, blocking me in. He got out slow, carrying something, a metal lockbox I'd never seen before. Tapped on my window. I rolled it down. Ray, Turn that engine off, he said. Not unkind, but firm. We need to talk. I'm leaving. It's what I do, what I'm good at. He set the lockbox on my hood. You can leave tomorrow if you still want to. But first, look at what I brought you. The lockbox was old, scratched metal, heavy. He unlocked it and lifted the lid. Inside were folders, dozens of them. Organized, labeled, tabs in different colors. Documents, photographs, printouts. Years of paperwork, all arranged like evidence. What is this? Ray looked at me with those steady eyes that had seen worse things than domestic betrayal. Your ammunition. I've been collecting it for 5 years. My hands went still on the steering wheel. What? Turn off the engine, Frank. Let me show you what someone who gives a damn can do. Ray spread the folders across my truck hood like a general planning a campaign. The engine ticked as it cooled. Above us, the Montana sky stretched wide and indifferent. First folder, Ray said, opening it. Timeline and property records. Copies of deed transfers showing exactly when your ex-wife forged your signature. See here. He pointed to a highlighted section. County clerk's stamp, 2 weeks after you left. I stared at the documents. Official seals, notary stamps, everything that made lies look like truth. Second folder, financial documentation, bank statements, retirement account access records. He flipped through pages marked with sticky notes. Every transfer to Derek Hammond's account, dates, amounts, routing numbers. How did you? Third folder. He didn't pause. Police report and witness statements. I got copies through a records request. Diane's missing person filing, officer notes, interviews. He pulled out a single page, including Clayton's statement about your mental state. My throat was tight. Ray? Fourth folder. Photographic evidence. He opened it to reveal pictures. My old house in Nebraska, the hardware store, the neighborhood. I drove there 6 times over 5 years. Talked to your old neighbors, the church folks, people who knew you both. You drove to Nebraska? That's 18 hours. Closer to 20 with stops. Ray's voice stayed level. Fifth folder. Background on Derek Hammond. Employment records showing he worked at your daughter's high school. Started the affair while she was a student there. His jaw tightened. Man's a predator in more ways than one. I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Sixth folder. Ray's hands were steady on the papers, like this was just another job that needed doing. Hospital records. Tracked down the paternity test. Got copies showing the test date. 6 weeks before you left. Proves your ex-wife knew before you did that the baby wasn't yours. How did you get medical records? That's seventh folder. Your personal letters. He pulled out a document I didn't recognize, including one you don't remember writing. Letter to yourself, dated the day you left. Notarized at a UPS store in Kearney. I took the paper with shaking hands. My handwriting, but I had no memory of writing it. The words swam. I'm leaving because staying means living a lie. Diane won't end it with Derek. The baby isn't mine. Test proves it. I can't raise another man's child while she keeps seeing him. This isn't abandonment. This is survival. You were in shock that day, Ray said quietly. The notary clerk remembered you. Middle-aged man, hands shaking, insisted on writing everything down in case I forget why I'm doing this. You left it in the store's outbox. She kept it when you didn't come back. Took me 4 months to track her down. The paper crumpled slightly in my grip. Why would you do all this? Ray was quiet for a moment. The mountains stood dark against the fading light. 5 years ago, you moved in next door with nothing but a truck and a look I recognized. What look? The one that says, I'm done being where I'm not wanted. He turned to face me fully. I had that same look 40 years ago when I came here. My wife had an affair. Gave me a choice. Stay and pretend it never happened, or leave and be called the bad guy. I left. The wind picked up, scattering dust across the folders. Never fought back, Ray continued. Never told my side. Spent 40 years wondering if I was a coward. His voice roughened. When I saw you, I decided something. If your story was like mine, you weren't going to face it alone and empty-handed. So you just started investigating? Drove to Nebraska, talked to old neighbors, visited county offices, hired a researcher for 2 months, cost me most of my savings, but I'm old and single. What else am I spending it on? He managed a thin smile. Some of us old boys, we look out for each other. I looked at the mountain of evidence he'd built. 5 years of work. 5 years of believing I was worth defending when I'd barely believed it myself. You don't have to fight, Ray said. You can still leave, drive to Wyoming, start over again, but you don't have to run empty-handed. You've got proof now. You've got the truth documented, sealed, ready. Something broke in my chest. Not pain, release. 5 years of carrying the weight alone, and here was a man I'd barely spoken to, who'd spent his time and money and effort proving I mattered. I couldn't stop it. The breakdown came hard and fast, shoulders shaking, breath catching. Not from weakness, but from the overwhelming proof that someone had cared enough to act. Ray's hand landed on my shoulder, firm, steady. You're worth fighting for, Frank, even if you don't believe it yet. I pulled myself together slowly, wiped my face with my sleeve, looked at the evidence spread before me like a gift I didn't know how to accept, pulled out my phone, called Meredith. I have documentation, I said when she answered. All of it? Can you meet tomorrow? Frank, where did you? She stopped. Yes, I'll clear my schedule. I looked at Ray. I don't know how to thank you. Win, he said simply. That's how you thank me. My phone buzzed. Sarah. Mom says you're harassing her with lawyers now. Why can't you just leave us alone? Ray saw my face change. Your daughter? Yeah. The word came out hollow. Even with all this evidence, she still thinks I'm the villain. Then show her the truth, Ray said. Let her decide for herself. Sarah stood in her mother's garage, boxes piled around her like archaeological layers of a life she thought she understood. Tom, her fiancé, was helping her look for wedding decorations Diane swore were somewhere in here. This is hopeless, Sarah said, pushing aside a box labeled Christmas 1998. Tom pulled out another box, this one unmarked. What about this one? Inside were tools, old paperwork, a jacket. Sarah lifted the barn jacket, heavy canvas, worn at the elbows, smelling faintly of sawdust and something else, something that tugged at memory. Is that your dad's? Tom asked. Diane appeared in the garage doorway. Why are you going through that? Just throw it away. The sharpness in her mother's voice made Sarah look up. I was just… Throw it away. Diane's face had gone tight. Or donate it. I don't care. I don't want it in my house. After she left, Tom looked at Sarah. That was weird. Yeah. Sarah held the jacket, feeling the weight of it. I'll take it, to donate. But she didn't donate it. She took it home, hung it in her closet. 3 days later, trying it on for no reason she could name, her hand found the inner pocket. Something crumpled inside the lining. A receipt, folded small, yellowed at the edges. Nebraska Medical Lab, paternity test, results, ready for pickup. The date? 5 years ago, 6 weeks before her father left. Sarah sat on her bed, the receipt shaking in her hands. She'd been 23 that year, not a baby. So the test wasn't about her. Her mother had been pregnant when Dad left. Sarah remembered that, the tension in the house, the whispered arguments, then nothing. Dad just gone one day. The baby born 7 months later. Her half-brother, living with Mom and Derek now. She pulled out her phone. Searched. Can you get paternity test while pregnant? Answer, yes. Prenatal paternity test available after 7 weeks. Her father had known. Before he left, he'd known the baby wasn't his, which meant her mother had known too. Sarah called Diane, tried to keep her voice steady. Mom, where are the photos from 5 years ago, right before Dad left? Why are you asking about that? Wedding photo album. Tom wants to see what our family looked like. I threw those away. Too quick, too defensive, too painful. Sarah hung up, stared at the receipt. All photos from that year, gone. Her mother, who kept every school paper, every birthday card, threw away an entire year of photographs. Tom found her still sitting there an hour later. You okay? I found something. She showed him the receipt. A paternity test from right before Dad left. Tom read it, understanding dawning. Sarah, Mom was pregnant. The baby, Derek's kid, the one they're raising. Sarah's voice cracked. Dad knew before he left. The test proves it. You should ask your dad about this. No. The word came automatic. 5 years of anger, of shame, of telling people her father abandoned them. He had his chance to explain. Did he? Tom's voice was gentle. Or did you not let him? Sarah found her father's number in Diane's phone, saved under deadbeat, texted, I found something in your jacket, a receipt from a medical lab for a paternity test, dated 5 years ago. Hours passed, no response. She was starting to think he wouldn't answer when her phone buzzed. That test proved the child your mother was carrying wasn't mine. She knew the results before I left. I'm sorry you're finding out this way. The world tilted. Sarah read it again. Again. She drove to her mother's house, walked in without knocking. Diane was in the kitchen with Derek. The domestic scene, coffee mugs, morning paper, suddenly looked obscene. You were pregnant when Dad left, Sarah said. Was it his baby? Diane's face went white, then red. This is exactly what he wants. To turn you against me. Don't fall for it, Sarah. Answer the question. Was it Dad's baby? It doesn't matter whose it was. He left. He abandoned his responsibilities. You're not answering. Sarah's hands were fists at her sides. You cheated on him, didn't you? Your father was cold, distant. I was lonely. The words came fast, defensive. Derek paid attention to me. Derek made me feel… Derek was my gym coach. Sarah's voice broke. I was in high school. You were sleeping with my gym coach while married to Dad? Derek stood up from the table. Diane, stop talking. Let the lawyer handle this. Lawyer? Sarah looked between them. What lawyer? Diane wiped at her eyes. Tears that came too easy, too practiced. Your father owes us money, Sarah. For you. For the life he destroyed when he left. For me? The laugh that came out of Sarah was sharp and wrong. He's not fighting you over me. He's fighting because you stole from him. I protected what was mine. It wasn't yours. Sarah backed toward the door. None of it was yours. And you knew it. If you go to him, Diane said, voice shaking, if you choose him over me, you're choosing a man who abandoned you, a coward. Sarah stopped at the door. You know what? I'm going to Montana. I'm going to hear his side, the real side. Sarah, you don't get to decide who my family is anymore. She texted Frank from her car. I'm driving to Montana. We need to talk. Just you and me. His response came quickly. Your mother will be here tomorrow with her lawyer for a property meeting. Come if you want the truth. Sarah started the engine. Tom slid into the passenger seat without being asked. 8-hour drive, he said. I'll navigate. Thank you. What are you going to do when you get there? Sarah gripped the steering wheel, the receipt still in her pocket. Ask the questions I should have asked 5 years ago. Frank's cabin the night before the confrontation felt like the calm before lightning. Meredith arrived just after sunset, her compact car struggling up the mountain road, manila folders stacked in her passenger seat like ammunition. Ray was already there, sitting on the porch with Frank, 2 coffee mugs between them, and the kind of silence men fall into when words would just be noise. I've organized everything, Meredith said, spreading folders across Frank's kitchen table. The cabin felt smaller with 3 people in it, the wood stove ticking as it cooled. We present the evidence systematically. Forgery first. The signatures are clearly different. Then the financial fraud, the transfers to Derek's account, then the false police report. And the paternity test? Frank asked. Last, after everything else is established. Meredith looked at him over her glasses. Frank, your daughter will be there. When she hears all this, I know. He'd thought about little else. It's going to destroy how she sees her mother. The truth usually does. Meredith's voice wasn't unkind. But lies hurt longer. You're giving her reality. That's a gift, even if it doesn't feel like one. Ray spoke from his position by the door. I'll be there, not as a witness, just as a friend. You need someone in your corner who's not wearing a suit. You've already done. I'm seeing this through, Ray said. It wasn't up for debate. 200 miles away, Sarah drove through the darkness with Tom sleeping in the passenger seat. Her hands were tight on the wheel, the receipt from her father's jacket burning a hole in her purse. Every mile brought her closer to a truth she wasn't sure she wanted. The questions had been circling her mind for hours, wearing grooves. Had her whole childhood been a lie? Was her mother who she thought? Was her father? Tom woke as they crossed into Montana. You okay? You haven't said anything for an hour. I'm about to learn my whole life was built on lies. How do I prepare for that? You don't. You just face it. Sarah's grip tightened on the wheel. What if Dad's the one lying? What if the receipt is fake, out of context? Sarah, Tom's voice was gentle but firm. Your mom's reaction when you asked about the baby? That wasn't innocent. You know it wasn't. She did know. Had known the moment her mother couldn't meet her eyes, couldn't give a straight answer. The knowing was the thing she'd been running from for 8 hours of highway. I don't want to know, she whispered. I know, but you're going anyway. In a hotel room 30 miles from Frank's cabin, Diane paced. Her lawyer, briefcase open on the bed, was trying to project calm he clearly didn't feel. We stick to abandonment, he said. That's our foundation. Frank Mercer left his family without support. Everything else is context. He has evidence. Diane's voice pitched higher. I don't know what, but that neighbor, Ray something, he's been digging. I should have seen it. Should have. What evidence could he possibly have? You filed first. You have documentation. Diane stopped pacing, looked at her lawyer with something close to panic. I forged some of it. The house deed, some of the signatures. I had to. He took everything when he left. The lawyer's face went carefully blank. Diane, you didn't tell me you forged documents. It doesn't matter. Her hands were shaking now. I was the victim. Any judge will see that. Derek emerged from the bathroom, hair still wet from the shower. Maybe we should drop this. It's getting too public. People at my work are asking questions. The school board. Your job? Diane whirled on him. I lost everything for you. My marriage, my daughter's respect, 35 years of my life. You don't get to back out because you're scared. I'm just saying, no. Her voice went cold. We see this through. Tomorrow we go to Frank's property, we present our case, and he pays what he owes. The lawyer closed his briefcase with a sharp click. Mrs. Mercer, if Frank has evidence of forgery, the case changes completely. We could be looking at criminal charges against you. He's bluffing, Diane said, but her eyes betrayed her. In Copper Ridge, word had spread the way it does in small towns. Mrs. Patterson, closing up the general store, mentioned to a customer that something's happening tomorrow at Frank's place, lawyers and everything. The customer told her husband. The husband told his brother at the diner. By nightfall, half the town knew Frank Mercer was making some kind of stand. Some thought he'd been hiding something all along. Others, the ones who'd seen him quietly helping neighbors, fixing fences without being asked, living a life of honest work, those ones figured there was more to the story than a city woman's tears. Ray, asked his opinion while picking up supplies, just said, "Truth's going to out tomorrow, one way or another." At midnight, Frank sat alone on his porch. Ray had gone home. Meredith had driven back to her office to prepare. The mountain was silent except for wind through pine trees and the distant call of an owl. He looked at the lockbox Ray had given him. 5 years of evidence. 5 years of someone believing he was worth defending. His phone buzzed. "Sarah, I'll be there at 10 a.m. Before Mom's lawyer meeting. I want to hear your side first." Frank typed back, "I'll tell you everything. Bring your questions." He watched the stars wheel overhead, the same stars that had witnessed his leaving 5 years ago, the same stars that had watched him rebuild something honest from the wreckage. Tomorrow, his daughter would arrive, would hear truths that would rewrite her history, would have to choose between the comfort of her mother's lies and the pain of her father's honesty. Frank made fresh coffee, though it was past midnight. Sleep wouldn't come anyway. He sat in the darkness, waiting for dawn, waiting for the reckoning he'd run from for 5 years. This time, he wouldn't run. This time, he'd stand. Sarah's car came up the mountain road 3 hours early, dust trailing behind it in the dawn light. Frank watched from his porch, coffee mug warming his hands, Ray silent beside him. She got out alone. Tom stayed in the car, giving them space. Father and daughter faced each other across 5 years of silence and lies. She looked like Diane had at that age. Same dark hair, same careful posture, but her eyes, those were his, wary, hurt, searching. "Tell me the truth," Sarah said. No greeting, no preamble. "All of it. And don't you dare lie to protect me." Frank gestured to the porch chairs. She hesitated, then climbed the steps. Sat as far from him as the small porch allowed. Ray stood. "I'll make fresh coffee." He disappeared inside, giving them privacy but staying close enough to matter. "I need to know why you left," Sarah said. "In your words, not Mom's version." Frank set down his mug, looked out at the mountains, gathering the words. "I came home early from the hardware store. Your mother was holding a baby. The baby had Derek's eyes. I'd seen him at your school events. I knew." "You just knew? Just by looking?" "I'd suspected for months. The way she pulled away, the way she lit up when his name came up, the baby confirmed it." He forced himself to meet her eyes. "I got the paternity test the next day. Results came back. Not mine. I showed your mother. She didn't deny it. Said she'd been lonely, that I was too quiet, too boring, that Derek made her feel young." Sarah's hands gripped the chair arms. "So you just left? Abandoned us?" "I asked if she wanted a divorce. She said no. Said we could work it out, that it was a mistake." Frank's voice stayed level, though the memory burned. "But she wouldn't stop seeing him. Told me I was being unreasonable, that I should accept reality and help her raise the baby." "What?" "She wanted me to stay. Pretend the baby was mine. Let Derek keep coming around. Let her have both lives." He shook his head. "I couldn't do it, Sarah. Couldn't die slowly in a house full of lies. You could have told me, called me, explained." You were 23, in college, building your life. I thought, his voice caught. I thought you'd be better off without me dragging you into it. I was wrong. I tried to call you, once. You didn't answer. Frank's chest tightened. Your mother told me you didn't want to hear from me, that you'd said I was dead to you. I believed her. I shouldn't have. Sarah pulled the receipt from her pocket, unfolded it with shaking hands. She told me you abandoned us, that you had a breakdown, that you were unstable, dangerous even. I was heartbroken, but not unstable. I knew exactly what I was doing when I left. Ray emerged with coffee, set a mug in front of Sarah without a word, then retreated to lean against the cabin wall. Witness and guardian both. The baby, Sarah said quietly. My half-brother. Where is he now? With your mother and Derek. They married about a year after I left. Sarah's face crumpled. She married him. The man she cheated with. And the whole time she was calling you a deadbeat. She made choices, bad ones. But that's between her and me. You don't have to hate her, Sarah. She's still your mother. How can you be kind about this? She destroyed you. Frank managed a sad smile. She didn't destroy me. I'm here. I built something honest. You're here. That's not destruction. That's survival. Ray moved then, carrying the lockbox. Set it on the porch table between them. Your dad's not the only one who's been gathering truth. Sarah looked at the folders inside. What is this? 5 years of evidence, Ray said. Forged signatures, bank transfers to Derek, false police reports your mother filed claiming your dad was suicidal. All documented, all proven. Frank opened the first folder, showed Sarah the deed transfer with the forged signature, then the bank records showing Diane's theft, then the police report claiming he was a danger to himself. She did this? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. All of it? Within 2 weeks of me leaving, Frank said. She planned it, Sarah, from the moment I drove away. Sarah found the letter Frank had written to himself. Read his handwriting, his pain from 5 years ago, his desperate need to document the truth before shock erased it. You wrote this the day you left. I don't remember writing it, but yeah, the notary clerk kept it when I didn't come back. Sarah set the letter down carefully, like it might break. She told me you had a breakdown, that we couldn't trust you, that you were dangerous. I was heartbroken, but I wasn't dangerous. Just done. The money she says you owe, the lawsuit. She forged my signature to steal everything I'd worked for. Now she wants more. Frank's jaw tightened. I won't lie, Sarah. I'm fighting her. That's why her lawyer's coming today. Sarah stood abruptly, paced the small porch like a caged thing. I defended her. For 5 years I told people you were the monster. I carried that shame, that anger. You didn't know. I should have asked. Her voice broke. I should have questioned her story. Should have called you. Demanded answers. Instead, I just believed her. You were her daughter. You're supposed to believe your mother. Even when she's lying? Frank had no answer for that. Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, face hardening. Mom wants to know where I am. She looked at Frank. Her lawyer meeting is in 2 hours. I'm staying. I want to be there when you show her the evidence. Sarah, it's going to be ugly. She'll fight. She'll say things. Good. Sarah's voice was steel-wrapped in hurt. I need to hear it from her. I need to watch her face when she can't lie anymore. Ray spoke from his position by the door. Your dad's a good man, ma'am. Good men deserve someone in their corner. Sarah looked at Ray, then back at Frank. Thank you. For when I wasn't there. Time passed in coffee and silence. Meredith arrived, set up her folders with professional efficiency. Then, in the distance, a car appeared, dust rising on the mountain road. Diane. Sarah stood, shoulders straight. I need to tell you something before she gets here. I don't know if I can call you Dad again. Not yet. Too much time, too much hurt. Frank is fine, he managed. Having you here is more than I expected, but I want to try, eventually, if that's okay. Frank nodded, not trusting his voice. The rental car pulled into the drive. Diane stepped out, saw Sarah standing beside Frank on the porch. Her face went through shock, betrayal, panic in the space of a heartbeat. Sarah, what are you doing here? With him? Sarah's voice was steady. Hearing the truth, something you should have given me 5 years ago. Diane's lawyer emerged from the car, briefcase in hand, already sensing the ground shifting beneath them. The confrontation unfolded on Frank's porch like a trial held in mountain air. 6 people, Frank, Sarah, Ray, and Meredith on one side, Diane and her lawyer on the other. The morning sun cut harsh shadows across the weathered boards. Meredith began with the calm of someone who knew she held all the cards. We're here to address Mrs. Mercer's claims against Mr. Mercer. I'll present evidence systematically. She opened the first folder. Exhibit A, the house deed. Mrs. Mercer claims Mr. Mercer signed over the property willingly. Here's the deed with the signature in question. She laid it out. And here's Mr. Mercer's actual signature from the business partnership dissolution, written the same week. She placed them side by side. Handwriting analysis confirms forgery. The K formation is different. The slant is wrong. Mrs. Mercer forged her husband's signature to steal his home. Diane's lawyer leaned forward, examining the documents. His face tightened. Exhibit B, financial records. Meredith pulled out bank statements. Mr. Mercer's retirement account was liquidated 2 weeks after his departure. The funds were transferred to an account belonging to Derek Hammond. Here are the transaction records, dates, amounts. I had to. Diane's voice cracked the professional atmosphere. He left us with nothing. He left you with a house, a business buyout payment, and a joint savings account, Meredith countered. None of which you touched. Instead, you stole his retirement, money he'd earned over 30 years, and gave it to your lover. Derek, standing behind Diane, shifted uncomfortably. His face had gone pale. Exhibit C, the false police report. Meredith's voice sharpened. Mrs. Mercer filed a missing person report claiming Mr. Mercer was suicidal. She used this fabricated mental health crisis to gain emergency access to his accounts. She read from the document. Frank has been acting erratic and depressed. I fear for his mental state. He may harm himself. She looked up. This was filed 2 hours after Mr. Mercer left. How did you know he was missing after 2 hours, Mrs. Mercer? How did you determine he was suicidal in that time frame? Diane's lawyer touched her arm. Mrs. Mercer, you didn't disclose any of this. If these documents are authentic. They're authentic, Meredith said. Certified copies, all of them. Which brings us to Exhibit D. She pulled out the paternity test. Dated 6 weeks before Mr. Mercer left. Proving the child Mrs. Mercer was carrying was not his. Proving she knew the truth before he departed. Sarah stood then, walked slowly toward her mother. The porch seemed to hold its breath. Mom. Her voice was quiet, deadly calm. Did you know before Dad left that the baby wasn't his? Diane's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Sarah, you don't understand. Yes or no? It's complicated. Did you plan to file that police report before he even drove away? I had to protect. Did you forge his signature? Sarah's voice rose. Yes or no? I did what I had to do. Did you love Derek while you were married to Dad? Something in Diane broke. The careful mask, the practiced victim, all of it shattered. Yes, I loved Derek. Your father made me feel invisible, old, used up. Derek reached for her. Diane, don't. She shook him off, turned on him with sudden venom. Don't tell me what to do. This is your fault too. If you hadn't. She stopped, breathing hard, turned back to Sarah. Derek saw me, wanted me, made me feel alive again. Your father was boring, predictable. He wasn't enough. The words hung in the mountain air like poison. He wasn't enough, Sarah repeated softly. So you destroyed him, stole everything he'd worked for, turned me against him, made me believe he was the monster. Sarah, I'm your mother. You're a liar. Sarah's voice didn't waver. and a thief. And you used me as a weapon against a man who did nothing but love you for 35 years. Diane's lawyer stood abruptly. I'm withdrawing from this case. Mrs. Mercer, you need different representation. He snapped his briefcase shut. And probably a criminal defense attorney. He left. Derek followed, not meeting anyone's eyes, coward to the bitter end. Diane stood alone, facing the daughter she'd manipulated and the man she'd destroyed. The morning sun showed every line in her face, every crack in the facade. You never satisfied me, she said to Frank. One last attempt to wound. Not once in 35 years. Every night, I wished you were someone else. Frank's response was quiet. I know. I could feel it. That's why I left. The weapon turned to dust in her hands. She had nothing left. Ray spoke for the first time. Ma'am, I think you should leave now. Diane looked at Sarah one more time. If you choose him— I'm not choosing anyone, Sarah said. I'm choosing the truth, something you never gave me the option to do. Diane walked to her car, got in, drove away alone, dust settling behind her like a period at the end of a sentence. The silence that followed was profound. Sarah sat heavily in one of the porch chairs. Ray brought water without being asked. Meredith began quietly organizing her folders. What happens now? Sarah asked. Meredith answered. I'll file countercharges tomorrow. Fraud, forgery, false police report. She'll likely take a plea deal, restitution instead of jail time. Frank spoke. I don't want her in jail, just want what she stole, and I want her to leave me alone. We can negotiate that, Meredith said. Sarah looked at her father. What about us? That's up to you. No pressure, no expectations. Frank's hands were steady on his coffee mug. If you want to know me, I'm here. If you need time, I understand. I don't know how to feel, Sarah admitted. Relieved? Angry? Sad? All of it. That's normal, Ray stood. I'll give you two some time. Coffee later, Frank? Yeah. Thanks, Ray, for everything. After Ray left, Sarah asked the question that had been burning in her. Did you ever stop loving her? Frank considered it. I stopped loving who she became, but I mourned who she was, or who I thought she was. I'm mourning who I thought she was, too. You're allowed to. She's still your mother. You can love her and be angry at her at the same time. Sarah stood to leave. I should get back to Tom. He's worried. Frank walked her to the car. She paused before getting in, turned back. Frank, thank you for telling me the truth, even though it hurt. You deserved it. You always did. She stepped forward, wrapped her arms around him in a brief, awkward hug. Frank returned it gently, carefully, like holding something precious that might break. She pulled back. I'll call you. In a few weeks, maybe. I'll be here. He watched her drive away, dust trailing into distance. Stood there until the sound of the engine faded completely. Ray's truck pulled back into the drive. He got out with two folding chairs, set them up on the porch. Figured you could use company that doesn't require talking. Frank smiled. First real smile in years. Appreciate it. They sat as the sun climbed higher, two men who understood that silence wasn't surrender, just peace earned through honest living. 6 months changed the shape of things. Spring came to the mountains, snow melting into runoff that sang down the valleys. Frank's chicken coop had grown. Sarah and Tom helped build the new section on her third visit. She came once a month now, sometimes more, still called him Frank, not Dad, but the word was warming between them like soil and sunlight. The legal business ended quietly. Diane returned most of the money, took a plea deal that kept her out of jail. She and Derek moved to Arizona. No contact, no forwarding address. Some endings didn't need ceremony. Sarah's wedding was small, held in a meadow 2 hours south. Frank attended, sat in the back row at Sarah's request. Not the father-daughter dance, not walking her down the aisle. They weren't there yet, but present, acknowledged. A beginning. Now, on a Tuesday evening that felt like any other, 3 people sat on Frank's porch. Ray, in his usual chair, smoking his pipe. Sarah cross-legged on the steps, showing Tom something on her phone. Frank, leaning against the rail, coffee warming his hands. "How do you take your coffee, Ray?" Sarah called toward the kitchen. "Black, 2 sugars," Ray called back. "Same as always." She grinned, went inside. The screen door slapped shut behind her. That particular sound Frank had come to love. Sign of people coming and going, of a home that breathed. Tom was helping Ray fix the porch railing, their heads bent together over the wood. Sarah's laughter drifted from inside, talking to someone on the phone. Frank looked out at the mountains turning gold in the evening light. 5 years ago, he'd come here to disappear. Found instead that a man could be lost and found at the same time. That family wasn't always blood. Sometimes it was the people who showed up, who stayed, who chose you when you'd given up choosing yourself. The coffee Sarah brought out was perfect. She'd learned how he took it without asking, just by watching. "Not bad," Ray said, tasting his. "You're learning." "Had a good teacher," Sarah said, settling beside Frank. They sat as the sun dropped lower, painting everything amber and possible. Ray's pipe smoke curled into evening air, Tom's easy laugh, Sarah's shoulder barely touching Frank's arm, contact that meant trust. Not the family Frank lost, the family he'd found. The screen door stood open, 3 chairs instead of one. Coffee shared in comfortable silence. Honest. Imperfect. Home.